Looking at Chapter 4, Section 1, you can see here that we're going to be looking at our chart of accounts a little bit deeper and talking about how we organize them using account numbers. And then we're going to talk about something called a general ledger. So, chart of accounts, we've talked about this before. We organize the chart of accounts into assets, liability, owner's equities, revenue, expenses. Well, now we're going to be a little bit more detailed with our chart of accounts and break it down even further. So a group of accounts is called a ledger. So we would have a ledger of our assets, a ledger of our expenses possibly. When you combine all of those ledgers together, so a ledger that contains all the accounts that we have, that is called the general ledger. So we're going to be using the general ledger a lot this chapter. And we know account title, that's the name given to every account. So supplies is the account title for supplies, repair expense, etc. So not a new vocab word for us, but we're going to be seeing account titles again. Something that is new this chapter is the account number. So account numbers are now going to be assigned to each account, and we are going to specifically talk about how we assign account numbers because it's really organized and it must be done the same way every single time. So here is a chart of accounts. We've seen this before. We have a chart of accounts every time we do a problem so that you know which accounts are used in each transaction. But the accounts now in our general ledger, you could see that they are arranged by what financial statement they appear on. So on the left, we have our balance sheet, and on the right, we have our income statement accounts. So those two financial statements that we looked at in the project at the beginning of the year, that is how we're organizing our chart of accounts. The next bullet point on your note guide, what are the balance sheet divisions on the chart of accounts? So you'll see that assets, liability, and owner's equity are included on the balance sheet. The next bullet point, what are the income statement divisions? Those are divided into revenue and expenses. Next, we're going to talk about how we get the account numbers. So you can see that we have supplies here as account number 150. The first number, so a 1 or 100s for assets, that's telling you the general ledger division. So the asset division all start with a 1. Liabilities, you can see they all start with a 2. And then finally, the next two numbers show you the location within the general ledger. So we start up at the top with 110, and we count by tens. So 150, supplies, is the 5th account in the assets section. So general ledger division, which is assets, and then location within the general ledger. So this accounting procedure, this numbering of the accounts, this is called file maintenance. So you might use file maintenance when you're organizing your Google Drive, hopefully, or file maintenance when you're organizing any other type of record. So that's what we're doing, just keeping our records consistent, assigning account numbers that are organized. Something to note is our second bullet point, that maybe we have a piece of machinery for our company that has to be repaired over and over and over again. So we have repair expense as an account that we use over and over and over again. Well, if we get rid of that piece of machinery and we don't have any other repair expense, we're still not going to remove that repair expense from the chart of accounts because 10 years down the road, we could get another piece of machinery that we have to repair. So we do not remove accounts from the chart of accounts, even if we're not using them anymore. Something else to notice is that assets are listed in order of liquidity. So liquidity means how quickly it can be turned into cash. So cash, it's already cash. That's the most liquid asset. So that's why cash is always account number 110. Next, we're going to look at how we assign account numbers. So you can see that our expenses are listed in order alphabetically. So right now we have 560 is miscellaneous expense, 570 is supplies expense. Well, if we want to add a new account called postage expense, P would fall between M and S. So what we have to do is count by 5s to squeeze it in between 560 and 570. Postage expense would be account 565, so that our expense ledger maintains the alphabetical order. Last, we want to add in water expense, which comes at the bottom of the alphabet. So we just count by tens again, and that gives us 580 for water expense. So that is how we assign account numbers. So especially in the expenses, we're keeping those in alphabetical order. So you want to make sure that you do that, and it might require you to count by fives instead of tens. So we're going to be looking at an account form. So it's a new form, a new document that we're going to be completing. We've looked at journals. We've looked at charts of accounts. Now we're going to be looking at an account form. So just a couple things to remember is that a journal is a permanent record of all the transactions in chronological order. So that's great. That's where we record transactions when they happen, and it's in order by date. Well, not that easy to determine how much, for instance, supplies that we have, or how much a company owes us, or how much we owe a company. So instead, we are going to use these account forms to summarize in one place all the changes to a single account. So this is called a balance ruled account form. So that is the third bullet point. And the account balance is calculated after each entry is recorded in the account. So that is the whole goal of these account forms. Balance ruled account forms. We have a separate account form for each account. So we have a separate one for cash, a separate one for supplies, etc., etc. So look a little bit deeper here at the account form. You can see that we have a lot of the same information that we have on our journal. So the date, the item, maybe the description, and the post-ref. Post-ref is where we're going to put the journal page number that the transaction is on so we can find that specific transaction. So post-reference is always going to have a number that is the page number that that number came from. So notice we have debit and a credit on the left and the right side, like always. And then most importantly, we have our balance here. So our balance columns, that is the main reason that we have this account form, to determine what our running balance is for each account. So in order to open an account in the general ledger, we're going to have an account for each account that we have. We have to write the title and the number, account number, on the heading. So it's pretty simple. Accounts are arranged in the general ledger the same way they're arranged in the chart of accounts. So if we are going to open the account for cash, step 1, we'll write the account title. Step 2, we write the account number. It's that simple. Now we have an account form, or a balance ruled account form, long way of saying it, for cash. And that is how we create an account form for each account that we have in our chart of accounts.